My name is Shannon Picklesimer. I'm with CF Stinson. Actually, it's fun. I live in Greensboro, so it's nice that I get to be home. Normally, I'm traveling up and down the East Coast. Actually, have an interior design degree background and got in textiles a long, long time ago and worked for the mill side for 15 years, and now I'm on the distributor jobber side. So this is an interactive CEU, so please ask questions as we go along. We're going to be passing some things out for you guys to kind of review. So we're going to get started. So this is an IDCEC approved. I've actually passed around the sheet. If you don't know any of your information, just write legibly so the admin person can email you if you're missing any numbers or anything like that, and then she will send it in and get you a certificate, okay? Everybody straight on that? And this is the IDCEC class code, and it's actually on that sheet. It's on the first page, but don't worry about it. I'll add it to the second as we add more people. So I already introduced myself. So what I was talking about a little bit earlier on coated fabrics have really come a long way. I mean, you think about, you know, where they are. So hopefully by the end of the day, learning about coated fabrics will help you specify and picking out the right products for your right environments. So one of the things we're going to do, we're actually going to learn about ACT. I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard of ACT. It stands for the Association for Contract Textiles. We're going to talk about that. We're going to actually define coated fabrics. We're also going to look at voluntary guidelines. If you do specify contract fabrics today, you are working with ACT on a daily basis, so we'll talk about that. We're actually going to look at performance situations in actual field, so you'll see some lovely photographs of coated fabrics, and hopefully at the end you will be able to specify with confidence. Any questions? All right. So I just wanted to introduce you guys to ACT. Like I said, it's for the Association for Contract Textiles. It only works with commercial fabric companies. So it's a non-profit trade organization that came together back in 1985. And if you look here, one of the things you'll see if specifying textiles, you'll see and probably know a lot of these companies here. Well, they have the principal members. They also have other manufacturers that are involved. They have dyeing companies, finishing companies, things like that, again, that strictly work for the commercial market. So, you know, it's one of those things that from residential, does anybody do any residential design here? Some. So from a residential to a commercial, really, I'm not as keen, I mean, on top of the residential, but I guess do they provide a lot of the specifications that are needed, or just really the fiber content and things like that? Fiber content, color fastness to light, any of those type things? Yes? Okay. Interesting. So if you guys recognize a lot of these companies up here, specify. And if you'll notice too, there are some on here that originally started in the residential market and have now moved over into the commercial market. So that's where we are. Okay, so ACT serves as a definitive resource for contract information. They develop lots of voluntary performance guidelines and environmental guidelines. There are all these different CEUs that they currently do to help get the message out. It provides a forum for commercial interior designers. It monitors legislation. Think about from the FR, flame is a really big topic right now in the commercial world. I know it's a big topic always in the residential world, but also in the commercial. And then we really try, or I should say ACT really tries to support, you know, new interior designers that are actually at the university level to bring them up so they're able to understand what goes on within the organization. So ACT does have a website. It's contracttextiles.org. It's a great website, and they're constantly changing it and adding new things, but it's a great place that you can find white papers. They're cleaning guides. They're actually going to be putting in, I don't know, has anybody ever been to a textile mill before? Probably carpet, but have you been to a textile? Well, it's going to do like guided tours through textile mills and things like that. So they're really trying to understand, because you would be surprised at how many specifiers out there have never seen how fabric has been made. I mean, they might have seen a video, so it's a great. And here, if you guys are located in North County, have lots of great opportunities to visit them. Here you'll see there are drop-down menus, and especially, I don't know, with white papers, those are always great things to have if you're trying to work with a customer and give them cleaning guides and things like that, so your products do last, especially in the commercial world where they are abused quite often. There are definitely some great things there. Okay, so what is a coated fabric? We're going to look at how they're made. So one of the things I'm going to do is, a lot of times a misconception is that coated fabrics are woven and then either some type of finish has been added. If it's a fluid barrier, if it's hand soiled stain, if it's some type of laminate, that's not the case. That is not what a coated fabric is. So I'm going to kind of be Vanna. I'm going to, if you don't mind, just kind of taking one and passing around. So coated fabrics are with a resin of some sort. So as we go through today, we're actually going to learn about different coated fabrics that are in the market and how that that opportunity has changed. So when I said coated fabrics, did everybody know what I was talking about? Or did you think there was, because you'd be surprised, I was at a conference one time and it was actually a healthcare designer, and she kept talking about coated fabrics, and in actuality she was talking about, have you heard of Krypton before? Well, it's a coated fabric, but it's not a resin fabric, so it's definitely woven with finishes on it. Questions? Okay. So let's look at does everybody have a sample? Just grab one. They're all the same thing, just so there's nothing fancy. It's just so you can kind of look at it. So what we're going to do, so turn it over and look at the back. Does everybody have one? If you don't, we have lots to share. So you turn it over, look on the back. So guess what you feel? It's a fabric, right? So let me look at the sample you have. So this is a knitted backing, okay? I'm going to pass this around. Feel that and just kind of see how that's a different backing. I'm going to pass this around, different backing. So when it comes from a fabric side, that's the makeup of the starting of a coated fabric. So there could be wovens, there could be knits, there could be non-woven. So that's going to say, and that really is determined by the manufacturer, okay? So if you look at it and kind of look, I have to look through my glasses. If you look at it, you've got the skin, the base, and the fabric. You really can't see the in-between layer. I mean, the base, it gets over. So one of the things that we want to make sure that we do is understand that it's a whole kind of layering type process, okay? So starting with the fabric, everybody has their sample. So one of the next things we're going to do is, as we flip it over to the top, things can be added. So what happens is you have your fabric base, you flip it over, and they start doing a vinyl resin, or it could be a polyurethane resin, or it could be a silicone resin, okay? So in that, one of the things that they can do is add an enhanced soil stain top coat. They could add ink-resistant top coats. They could add an antimicrobial top coat. So these things are all can be added on, but it's the end product. So let's say I have this product right here. You guys have what you have in your hands. If you call and say to whoever your fabric supplier, hey, I've got your sample, can you add an ink-resistant top coat? They're going to say, no, we can't, because it is part of the whole product, okay? Does everybody understand that? Any questions about that? one of the things that we're challenged with in the commercial world right now is, and we'll get to this a little bit later, is Prop 65. All fabric companies are just a component of the end use product. We don't know where it's going to be shipped, so that's one of the challenges. So we are now being asked to not have any added FR or added any antimicrobial. So a lot of things are having to change. So it is a challenge for us. Okay, so one of the things we're going to do is we're going to talk about, again, I'm going to pass these out. So all of you have vinyl, which is polyvinyl chloride. Vinyl has kind of gotten a bad rap over the years. They've really cleaned up their act and producing products that might not have phthalates or certain types of chemicals in there. And so that's what PVC is. You have PUs, which are polyurethanes. I'm going to pass. Look at that one. Look at this one. So polyurethanes really, are part of the product and are a water-based product. So you have chemical-based or oil-based, water-based, and then the last we're going to talk about is silicone, which are bio-based. So have any of you guys worked with any of these, all of these? And this is strictly just for upholstery. From a wall covering standpoint, they've got other things, but that's how that is. Any questions on those? Silicone is new to the market, I would say in the last 5 years. I will tell you, has anybody ever specified silicone before? You have? Did it work fabulous for you?
It seems to be working well, yeah, it's a healthcare setting.
Okay, so recently, a couple of years ago, or?
Product's probably been in about a year.
Okay, yeah. Well, and when silicones first came out, one of the challenges that we're facing is if you put certain cleaners on them, they were getting tacky and things like that of the top coat. That has changed. They've done a lot more research on that, so does very well now. And silicone is ink resistant inherently. So yeah, polyurethanes jumped into our market a long time ago. Really jumped in from the fashion industry. Think about shoes and handbags. So, and all of a sudden people loved it because it has a supple hand. One of the ones you have there is a little stiffer, but one of the things with polyurethanes you really have a difficult time printing on because it does have stretch to it. So there are different things we'll talk about here shortly that will help you as you're specifying products. Okay, so where to use coated fabrics? I think if you think people might use them residentially, probably not. But where we see it, they did a survey with 385 designers, and from there, one of the things they noticed is definitely hospitality, healthcare, corporate education. It's pretty much anywhere in the commercial market. And think about today where fabrics and vinyls all start looking a lot alike. So you do have different things that can be embossed, so you have more of a fabric texture, and things like this. So there are lots of different ways that you can look at things that have more of a woven aesthetic that are a coated product. And interesting, when they did the survey with all of these, I think people assume that coated fabrics go in the healthcare world. The most was being used in the hospitality, health, hotels, and restaurants. Does that surprise you? No? Okay, so we're going to talk about the ACT Voluntary Performance Guidelines for coated fabrics. So have you ever heard of that before? Performance guidelines? Okay, so if you've seen those icons, So if you turn on the back of anybody's swatch card, anybody memo sample, if they are part of ACT, they use these reference icons. And to have those icons on there means it meets the minimum standard, okay? So it really helps as we go through there. And one of the things in 2014 that was very needed were voluntary or certifications and performance guidelines for coated fabrics. It was coming new, it was happening pretty quickly, and it's not a woven. So if you pull it apart, different things happen to it. So it was time for us to, or the group to come up with certification marks for the coated products. So here you have two different categories. You have flammability, and then durability has 4 areas of it. So we're going to go through those. Do you guys know what all of these icons mean? Nope? Great, then you're going to learn something today. How about that? All right, so here we go. So flammability, of course, as you see up there, that's probably a big one. It is tested for end use. It pretty much most and all of your commercial products woven as well as coated meet Cal 117. They had some modifications. Now it's this 117-2013 Section 1. It's just a different test method they're doing, but you do have that. And if you look here too, they also have it for wrap panels, upholstered walls, and direct glue wall covering. So they have to meet these certain standards. One of the things that I will say in the commercial world is think about headboards in a hotel room. If you guys have traveled recently, you know, they're always the new it thing. Well, a lot of coated fabrics are being used on headboards now. Think about people's hair, whatever, if they've got body lotion on, they're leaning up against the thing. If they want to be able to have it wiped and clean, more cleanability, if they've got fabric, you might run into some hiccups there because, you know, traveling, people aren't great to high hotel rooms. It's like, don't touch, don't touch. So you definitely want to make sure. The interesting thing about headboards is like, okay, well, you're passing out a Cal 117 or ASTM E84. Well, if you pull the bed away from the wall, guess what? The board is still hanging on because it's affixed. So those tests are able to pass the ASTM E84 for a vertical test. So it's great to know. And one of the other things, if you think about when you're in a hotel room, a lot of it's become very minimal. So one of the other things you're seeing are vinyl or coated fabrics. It could be silicone or polyurethane, but one of the other things you're seeing is kind of the normal, are they dust ruffles? Dust ruffles around the bed. You know, they're literally upholstering the bed frames with a vinyl, and then your mattress is sitting on top. Yes, ma'am?
Didn't that same California regulation basically require warnings about the health effects of some of those coatings and fire retardant?
So yes. And one of the things too on here that was just abolished this year is the Cal 113. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that. That was where you had to assemble a whole piece of furniture and they would burn it. It's very expensive and people didn't know where their furniture was going. It was really just for the state of California. So, so yeah. And we're going to talk a little bit further about what's going on in the whole thing with testing. But one of the things too, anybody do hospitality? Okay, have you done any hotel rooms? Yeah. You know, one of the other big things is the reason coated fabrics is being used for headboards, and that is because guess what? Bed bugs cannot feed on that stuff. They can feed on fabric, and then they can jump on you and live and live and live. So that's one of the other reasons. Hopefully nobody's had a bed bug experience. You have?
Yeah, I've got a ring on my side from Hilton in Atlanta 2 weeks ago.
Oh my!
Still waking me up at night.
Really?
Yeah, kind of gross, but it hurts. So So they bite you in the ring, and I don't think anybody has ever
Oh.
like, 6 or 8 bites. And I was in that room 4 days, and I have 2 of them in 2 different places. Not pretty.
Oh, that's terrible.
I'm just curious, did you check the mattress thing?
I will
As
now
always
on.
do? Okay.
What do you mean, you don't see it visibly?
No, you do.
You-
They
yeah,
look like
I
little
think pull the
seams.
corners up and right where the the seam
the
around the
seam.
mattress, they like to get in where we can see it.
Oh, yeah, they look like little apple seeds.
It's bad. I mean, and especially you know, traveling in these large cities and stuff. You never know. I mean, in New York City alone, I mean, there are these you know, I mean, $1 million townhouses or apartments that are in these buildings that everybody's living in. Some of them are rent controlled, some of them are not. And you might have somebody that, this did happen to a designer I knew, and she was over there, I guess their residents, I don't know what they call it, homeowners association. And there was a gentleman that was very wealthy but had mental issues, and he was literally going on the streets and bringing in, he was a hoarder. He was bringing all this stuff off the street. Well, next thing you know, their entire floor was infested with bed bugs. They had to like move him out, move everybody out, have stuff. So it can multiply rapidly. So I'm sorry to hear that. That's not good.
I'm not proud of it.
But you know what it's like. It's not a good situation. So now we're going to talk about durability. And one other thing here, durability is best described as lifespan and the appearance of it. So we're going to kind of go through what each of these icons mean, and hopefully you'll learn something new today.
Quick question.
Yes.
Before we continue. Talk about durability. I always have a hard time deciding which one of the 3 I should spec. Vinyl? Should I go with something else? I mean, it's just, how do I make a decision to begin with?
Well, so tell me what type of design you contract.
In healthcare.
It really depends. I mean, I would say if it's, you know, if it's going on sleeper sofas or recliners, I mean, I would use some type of coated. One of the things that we run into in the healthcare world is, and we'll talk about, is what they're cleaning with. So it's very important to find out what they're, because most of the time they're cleaning what they're supposed to be cleaning: the toilet bowl, the sink, the walls, and they're wiping it down on every piece of furniture. It's terrible. So all of a sudden you've got something that really is intended to be there and should last, but then they're compromising the whole thing because they're cleaning it improperly. So if you've got like a corporate office, you know, you really don't have to worry as much. I mean, from polyurethanes to vinyls to silicones. But what we're seeing happen from a healthcare standpoint, where polyurethanes can definitely be used, silicones, what we're seeing, especially with the harsh cleaners, our vinyls are holding up better in some circumstances. But if you've got, you know, areas like not the ER waiting room, but, you know, other areas behind the scenes that are not just being abused, and people aren't, you know, have to worry about body fluids and blood and whatever else you might run into, that then I would look at something more that definitely is coated and not do a woven, just because of the cleanability aspect. Okay. Okay, so durability. So we're going to actually talk about the star. So does anybody know what the star means? All right, here we go. So the star is about tear strength. And it's a physical property. And so one of the things that we want to make sure is that you've got the adhesion of coating, tear strength. We also do hydrolysis strength testing. So with a coated fabric, different tests are going to be run on different products, okay? So when we look at all four of these tests are performed for the physical properties. So the first, with the adhesion of coating, this is used definitely for the top coat, is bonded firmly to the fabric. So if you've got your coated fabric here, they're actually going to take pieces of the thing. They're going to try to rip it apart and see if the fabric delaminates or falls from the thing. So that's one of the things they do there. And they do it under a certain amount of pounds. And if you notice here, they have the ASTM D751, and it says 3 pounds inches minimum. So what that means is they really want it from poundage to be higher than 3 pounds. So if it goes 2 pounds, it's going to fail. It would not be able to have the star on the back of their specification or their information. There are 2 tear strengths, so that's one of them. The other one too, they actually, if they're tearing it, if you do a fabric and you tear it, they're going to clamp it, they're going to pull it apart and see where it rips. This is actually, with coated, is a little bit different. It's called zippering, where it's really not about the coated part, it's about if the fabric continues to rip. Because if that does, it's going to rip the top coat as well. So those are different things that they do. Hydrolysis testing, has anybody heard about that? So that is a test that is done on polyurethanes, okay? So if you hear of non-PVC, is the same thing as polyurethanes. So polyurethanes, I think you remember I said that they are water-based product. Think about our bodies, 90-some% made up of water, right? We sit down, we get hot or whatever. So over a period of time, if that product has a lot of heat or whatever to it, it will start breaking down, could start breaking down. So that is one thing that the hydrolysis test does. With the hydrolysis test, what they end up doing is they put it in this chamber, goes under high heat and humidity, and for each week it comes out and looks the same, they put it back in. And so they want it to be a minimum of 5 weeks. And then in our world of the commercial, most of them you will see that are 5 up to 10 weeks. If you've got a resin or a product that says it's 7 years hydrolysis, or 7 weeks, excuse me, 7 weeks hydrolysis, means it's most likely been made with a polycarbonate resin, which is the highest resin in polyurethanes. So in polyurethanes, there are 3 resins. There's polycarbonate's the highest, polyether and polyester. And that's really important if you are specifying something and you're looking on the back and it says hydrolysis 5 weeks. I might call your textile consultant, textile rep, and say, hey, I'm working on this. Can you tell me if it's a polycarbonate resin? And that's really what you want, because the polyether and polyester are fashion. They're not going to hold up under the stringent cleaners that the polycarbonate will. Make sense? So this is what happens with hydrolysis. So over a period of time, you know, you're going to start getting bubbling, what they've gone there, and eventually it's going to flake off, and next thing you know, all you're going to have is fabric showing. Anybody specify polyurethanes or have? Probably you have. Okay, great. Polyurethanes, I don't know, when they first came out, you know, like I said, when they came into our industry, they're being specified on recliners. They have a very supple hand. They're really soft and feel kind of like butter. And one of the things that was happening quickly is, think about the manufacturer that gets the fabric in. It's a COM fabric or even a graded in that gets it in. Looks like vinyl, right? Well, it's not, because what happens is polyurethanes are directional. So it's going to have more stretch in one direction than the other. So let's say you've got this chair, the manufacturers cut out the template. All of a sudden, they cut it out the same way they cut out the vinyl, and guess what? After sitting over a period of time, if it hasn't been put on a dense cushion or they haven't changed it and they've turned the seat 90 degrees because they're trying to get the greatest yield within the 54 inches, all of a sudden there's going to be puddling on the seat. So that happened a lot, and now everybody really knows how to work with it, the manufacturers, where I would say that you want to make sure if you are reupholstering anything and you send it something to an upholstery shop, and they do a lot of commercial work, you might want to just let them know they're dealing with polyurethane because of that. You don't want them to railroad it. Also, you think about, there's a long spanse. You want to make sure that there's no puddling. So if they go in and do like faux stitches and things like that. So there are lots of different things that a manufacturer has to do to prep to upholster a chair. So if it is a polyurethane, they can't cut it the same size as their vinyl. It might be an inch smaller so they can stretch it and pull it. It's directional. They can't be railroading it and turning it. They also want to make sure that they're specifying it on dense cushions. If you've got something that's real cushy, you're going to have puddling. It's just the nature of that product. Okay? Any questions? Yes?
When you were talking about the 5-week or 7-week with polycarbonate and all, how would you know just by looking at the specs?
Some companies are starting to put polycarbonate resin, but some of them are not. So what I do is call your textile person and ask them. Yeah, and they will have that spec information. And this is just showing again physical properties, the stretch and setting of it, just to make sure that you don't have puddling. And listen, vinyl can puddle as well as silicone. It's really how your manufacturer works with it. Okay. Any questions? I always tell, just from a manufacturing, of course, I'm not in the furniture world. I know all these other people that are in the furniture world but there are, while, we find a beautiful fabric or a beautiful coated fabric or even a woven fabric, and it might be your inspiration for your design, it might not be the right product to go on that piece of furniture. So you really have to think about that too on as well. Okay, color fastest to light, the sunshine. You guys seen this before? So color fastest to light. So if you look at, from a woven standpoint, it will go grade 4 minimum at 40 hours. So coated, they're going up to 200 hours. So color fastest to light is really looking at how the product performs under ultraviolet light. It could be even under these, I don't know if these are fluorescent lights or whatever, but any type of lighting. You think about if you take things off the wall, it's going to fade. It could fade. So the color fastest to light is really important. So how that test is done, they take the specimen strips and they put it in a chamber, and it rotates. And think about if you were a welder and you had your torch and you're going in, you have to wear protective gear, right? And if you looked at it without the proper goggles, you'd probably burn your retina, right? I mean, it's really hot. So that's what type of intensity these products go under. So they really want, and now with outdoor products, there are a lot of coated fabrics that can be outdoor, as well as woven. Those can go up to 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 hours. They're just stopping it, at these minimums to have it. So they have changed the minimums with coated versus woven. Okay. Crocking, the paint palette. I don't know if you can see that or not. You can. So does anybody know what crocking is? What?
Like a dye transfer?
Dye transfer, absolutely. You get a prize. Okay, so crocking is very interesting, and we're seeing this a lot more. So, one of the things is different from coated than woven. Let's say in coated, they're taking well, this is the same, but in coated woven, let's say these chairs are the color of my pants, okay? And all of a sudden, they're on 300 chairs. You've got a group that's come in, it's summertime, they've got their khaki pants on, their white jeans, it's hot, they're sweating, they sit down, the dye has not been cured properly in the process, and now everybody has red buns going around. okay? That's crocking. On the coated side, it's a little bit different because you think about coated, if you rub this, it's probably not going to come out. So they take a dry cloth, clear, rub it under a certain amount of poundage. If there's any transfer off, there's it. Again, coated, you really don't have to worry about that as much. So that's crocking. Wet, they take a wet thing, rub it. If there's any dye transfer off, it's not going to happen. But where we do see it happening, which is more of a reverse situation, is reverse crocking. That is where our jeans, our black pants, our black scrubs, our dark blue, we're sitting down, the dyes have not been set in our clothes, and guess what? Now your chairs are black or blue or green or whatever color. It happens all the time. Think about your car. You might have light colored upholstery in your car. You get in and out of the driver's seat, next thing you know, your seat's now black or a darker color. It looks kind of grungy. So that is a huge challenge that we face now. And I can tell you, I travel up and down the East Coast and being in these design firms, which are spectacular. You go into the conference room, they're white leather or white coated product, and think about how people are dressing nowadays, more dressy casual or business casual, whatever that means, and they're in their jeans and they're sitting down. Well, now their chairs look like they've got a film over them because now their clothes are transferring. So unfortunately, I think people think if they see that they're thinking that the coated fabric has failed, and that's not the case. There are products out there that have a denim dye transfer top coat that will help with that, but not all products have that in their coated fabrics. Any questions? Anybody experience that? Yeah. I it was a brand new install. It was in Hillsborough. It was at a UNC clinic, and all the coated products were like this oatmeal color, that in that range, and there were lots of textile people there because they had lots of different products, and everything, you could tell where people were sitting in the seats, and that was because they all wore black scrubs. And you know, you think about that stuff is not, I mean, scrubs are cheap. I mean, you know, they're cranking them out. They're not setting the dyes, and that's one of the things that's happened. Here in the States, there are regulations for garment companies that they have to meet certain standards, but a lot of this stuff is coming from overseas, and there's no regulations of having that happen. Yes?
What recourse does a designer have if someone comes back to them and says, well, this is a subpar fabric you chose for this chair?
Well, and that will happen, but I mean, that's one of the things as specifying if you, I mean, you know, asking the question, I mean, if it is a healthcare, you know, or what color are they wearing, you know, whatever. And I would let them know, bless you, I would let them know too, I mean, if they have clients that are coming in, or if it's, you know, you think about now going into a lot of these firms, half the people are these collaborative spaces, are working at the conference room or whatever, and people are specifying light colors. You really should, if they're gonna be doing that, you should think about maybe doing something with more texture that's not a solid, and then maybe kind of change the color that it's not so light, because you will have that. That's just inherent, unfortunately. So there's not a really...
The designer can't come back to the fabric company.
Mm-mm.
It's not your fault either.
No, because it's what the people are wearing.
So who eats it, I guess is my question.
I mean, that's something you have to have a frank conversation with up front and just say, listen, you know, I understand that I mean, think about the restaurant business, fast chain, fast food, people sliding in. I mean, God knows what people are wearing when they're in there. And they realize, I mean, the big chains, I mean, KFC and McDonald's and Wendy's, I mean, they realize that's something that they can't. Now, like I said, there are some products out there that do have the enhanced denim dye transfer. I would ask for something like that, but other than that, you really have no way.
Are there any cleaners that would get any of that
Really, on that, isopropyl alcohol takes it off. So.
What type of alcohol?
Isopropyl alcohol, it's rubbing alcohol. I think it's like 9%, but you always have to rinse with water. We'll talk about that too when you start putting stuff on. Okay, any other questions about crocking? Everybody learning something? Okay, great. All right, so we're talking about abrasion, the big A. And so one of the things with abrasion, again, with coated fabrics we had to look at was print retention. Think about, look at all your sample, that's a printed coated product. It's a vinyl, it's printed. So they had to look at the retention on how that was gonna wear, if it would wear off over a period of time. Now, let's be honest. If the way the Weizenbeek machine runs, I don't know if any of you guys have seen that does the Weizenbeek for abrasion. It is a machine that they have your cutting, they pull it over, and literally there is a roll that goes, that's one double rub, two double rub, three double rub. Well, that machine was originally invented for linoleum floor testing. We're testing it on fabrics now. So from a standpoint of abrasion, what they started doing is the Tabor test. It's not that, it's kind of more of a circular type thing. So it's not like the Weizenbeek that they're able to get on. So that's one of the things with the print retention they're starting to look at. If by chance you have a coated fabric that has a print on it and is starting to wear off, you know, start asking the questions. What are they cleaning with? You know, where is the product going? You know, what type of, you know, application is it's going in? So you really have to, but all in all, you really shouldn't have to worry about it because it's all been coated and things like that you want. And nowadays, I mean, the technology has come such a long way, which is really nice. One of the things too, I guess if you start looking at abrasion, you know, abrasion is one of those things it's become quite a nightmare for us as textile companies in the fact that as you go through, just because it's 100,000 or 50,000 or 150,000, it is not going to wear any differently. I mean, pretty much your fabric's going to ugly out before it wears out. So what you're starting to see happen is within all of the ACT principal members is they're starting to add this verbiage, as well as some of the commercial furniture manufacturers, saying that, you know, multiple factors affect fabric durability and appearance retention, including end-user application and proper maintenance. Weizenbeek results above 100,000 double rubs have not been shown to be an indicator of an increased lifespan. So, you know, you're going to have products that go to 1 million. You're going to have them go to 200. So a lot of times now they're cutting the machine off at 100,000 because it does not dictate the lifespan that it's going to last 2 more years, 3 more years, or whatever. That's not the case. So, and it's interesting because there are, I mean, in traveling and just, you know, working with different people, I mean, you'll ask them, so, you know, what is the one thing you look at first? And they'll go, abrasion. It has to be 200,000 double rubs. You're like, well, why? And like, I don't know, that's just a number I have, or 100,000. So they don't really know because it doesn't equate to anything. Okay, so I'm going to hand this out later, but we do have a great little guide to textile specification I think will be really helpful for you. We'll hand this out afterwards, and it'll just kind of walk you through all the icons and things like that you can learn more about. And if it's not here and you have questions, you can actually also go to the website as well. So one of the things that we're running into or challenges that we're facing are the environmental regulations. And what I'd mentioned to you earlier, I don't know if any of you guys have run into this, if you have clients that are in California or not, but this is one of the things that we as a component are now starting to run into, because come January 1st, in the state of California, if you are shipping furniture or anything coated, if it's especially coated woven, you don't have to worry about it, but it cannot have any added FR. So that's a challenge because, you know, from a distributor or a jobber standpoint, you know, they just don't have work in California. You know, think about Las Vegas. I mean, where it's huge hospitality, you probably want some added FR. I mean, you know, while unfortunately it's going to help people get out longer if the fire department can't get in there, if there's sprinkler systems or whatever. So, you know, in the hospitality world, we really, I mean, a lot of people still want it. So it's kind of this thing, you'll have some products that have it and some products that don't. And that's one of the things that we're faced with. But come January 1st, anything going to California cannot have any added FR. So. Setting expectations, you know, we just want to make sure that, you know, coated fabrics, we know that they're very durable. They can help you out in lots of environments and situations, you know, in your specifications. Yes?
Sorry to interrupt, I was just thinking what you just said, no added FR, but California has, I mean, it's got to have a tight flammability rating to be acceptable in California, right? I mean, isn't that one of the higher FR ratings as
Well, yeah, but that now what's happened now, it's become this whole environmental thing where they feel like, you know, they would rather, instead of having that chemical there, they would rather it, and if it burns, it's going to release that chemical, not having that chemical there. So there are some things. I don't know all the fire codes and stuff of what's going, how it, I haven't really researched that, but they're constantly challenges it going.
So there's still some FR rating on there.
Oh, I'm sure so. Absolutely, absolutely. The Cal 117, yeah.
The only one that the new FR version won't pass is what's called an IMO, which is International Maritime. So you could not put the new version that doesn't have the FR chemicals in it on like a yacht or a boat or a plane.
Okay.
But it still passes the 3 major contract interiors test. So
But it's not having extra that would contribute to the environmental
Correct.
concerns.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
You know, one of the things that we run into, especially with coated fabrics, is it's not being cleaned properly. I mean, that's our biggest challenge that we run into. So one of the things here, these are field issues with coated fabrics, and one of the things, improper cleaning and lack of maintenance is number one. And it is a huge challenge because if it's not maintained properly, if it's not cleaned properly, or if it's cleaned with the wrong stuff, all of a sudden you've got bigger issue. You know, I think people feel like when they're not at their home, they decide to poke a pencil in it or whatever. I mean, you think about K through 12, even in education, even in higher ed. People are laying on it, eating on it, doing whatever on it. You know, it's a challenge. So we are seeing reverse crocking. Improper specifications a big thing, just kind of knowing what works best. And then the other things we talked about earlier, hydraulics failure, puddling, and seam failure. So these are all things that we do run into with coated fabrics and field issues. So one of the things that we want to make sure is that, you know, we talk about cleaning and the #1 cause of failure, which we noted. You know, one of the things that I think happens is when a stain-resistant finish is added or certain performance additives, you want to make sure that while you clean it with hopefully the proper cleaner, you do your research and make sure you understand what you should clean it with, you know, that you're always rinsing with water. And I know that second step never wants to happen, especially in healthcare where they're trying to, you know, move patients in a facility pretty quickly. You know, the doctor's seeing X amount of patients or whatever, they're going to wipe it down. They need to then rinse it and let it dry down as well. So those are tough. You know, one of the things that we also want to make sure from a stain situation, if you are specifying products for a restaurant or something like that, it's an Italian restaurant and there's marinara sauce, I mean, that stuff stains. I mean, get some samples from your textile supplier, put those stains on there, mustard, whatever it is, and make sure you can get them off with what they're cleaning with. Or if it's not, you then get what is recommended to be cleaned with and provide that spec information to your designer so they can pass on to that restaurant. Huge thing. You know, definitely, you know, do your testing before you specify it. So cleaning and disinfecting are two different things. I think people think they're one and the same. Cleaning is with soap and water, right? Pretty much. Disinfecting is going to be with at least a 10% diluted bleach or other type cleaners, and that is to get, you know, MRSA and all these other things, fungus, fungi, whatever it might be, off. So as you see, you know, while you clean it, the second step is always the same. You got to rinse it, and then you wipe it dry with a clean cloth. And you think about think about our hands. If we put hand sanitizer on 8 times a day and you never put moisturizer back on, what eventually happens with all these cleaners is it sucks everything out. All of a sudden your product becomes brittle and starts falling apart. That's what happens. Improper cleaning, this is an example. Let's see what, so this is where polyurethane, they used a hard surface cleaner. Again, I cannot stress enough, if you do healthcare, find out what they're cleaning with. You can be a huge help to your customer, and not only that, they'll probably come back and want to do more business with you because you've done your research to find out if they're cleaning with a super Santa cloth or they're cleaning with a Virex or Virox or any of those things. You then can recommend that these products you would suggest them specify. They might not be the prettiest products, but you know, you don't want to get the call once it's been installed a year and they're like, what in the world's going on with this stuff? And they're cleaning it with something they really shouldn't be cleaning with. And that happens all the time.
And they pick up the same towel. Even if they use the right stuff, they pick up a towel that has the same.
Well, and you think about restaurants, this is a huge thing. They spray the table, they rinse it, and then what do? They wipe the booth off right there. So it's having in that probably is not, it might be appropriate for the table, but not for the product that's in the booth. This abuse is a big thing. You know, we'll get calls or people, I'm sure, you know, say, you know, does your product hold up to stiletto heels? Because they're putting it in a strip club or something. I don't know. I mean, you know, whatever it may be, I don't know. You know, people, you know, you've got all shapes, all sizes. You've got different size of furniture frames, and you might have somebody that's trying to fit in a frame that doesn't. They've got keys or, you know, radios or phones, and they scratch that stuff. So abuse is going to happen. Think about if you are doing a room and it's and you've crammed so much, or you're working with existing and they want you to reupholster something. Well, if it's getting banged up against the wall, that's abuse. I mean, that's nothing that that product is not holding up. They don't want to hear that, but that's, you know, that's the situation.
Shannon, I got a question specifically
Yeah.
with healthcare. When you're working with behavioral health, knowing that you're going to have abuse, what kind of criteria do you use for
You know, unfortunately, you can suggest probably some strong vinyls and things like that, but behavioral health is doing a lot of molded seating, because once something happens, they start picking at it, you know, or pick at the seam, or depending on what it is.
Or they don't want staples.
Yes.
They can get to.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff is all like molded plastics and things like that. I know they're not very comfortable, but they kind of have to go with stuff like that because of the situation that they're in.
Not then just vinyls?
No, no. I mean, what do you mean?
I mean, if they do not have the hard surface furniture, where should we go with fabrics?
Well, I wouldn't do a woven by any means. I mean, if you did a coated, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that will hold up. But like if they start pulling, because I think they can't have seams. Seams and welts and all that. There's certain ways they manufacture certain brands of furniture. So you would just have to work with the furniture manufacturer and see. I mean, they've got the experience with that. But I'm seeing a lot more of that product not being used just because of that. They just had the healthcare design show last week. There were a lot of behavioral health manufacturers there, and a lot of them were showing more of the molded products versus having any type of soft coverings. So. Another big thing is improper specification. You know, think about other things like the environment, if it's the right style furniture. Now, a lot of your furniture manufacturers will say it's approved or not approved, but there are times that they might not, and they get it, and they said, oh, well, they specified it, well, it works on our product, and then you end up running into, it's a bariatric chair, and they put something that had cotton in it versus, you know, whatever, had certain type of finish or whatever. But from a coated side, you know, you just have to make sure that, you know, where you're specifying is the right place. And like I said, your textile reps should know, and if they don't, they should pick up their phone and call somebody that does, because it's always changing. So just to kind of, we're finishing up right now. You guys learned about ACT. Hopefully you guys can utilize the website, more so of coated fabrics, you know, learning more about the differences between vinyls, polyurethanes, and silicones, you know, field issues that you might run into. So, you know, one of the things that we want to make sure is that you are specifying with more confidence on a coated product and specifying the right situation. That's it.